Hey, folks, it's Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson. Today on Tennessee Today, I had the opportunity to interview the chairwoman of the Hamilton County Republican Party, Gail Greene. We talked a lot about party structure, party brand. We also talked about her unique path to becoming the party chairman. We also talked about how people can get engaged in the party, but also about how getting involved also requires understanding the brand, the principles of the party, the values of the party, and how that brings unity to the organization. It's a really important conversation about party brand, party unity, people engagement. I hope you take the time to listen. It's really good. Do you ever wonder what's really going on in government, locally, in the state of Tennessee, and across the country? I'm Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson, and on Tennessee Today, we dive into the issues that shape our communities, from local policy to national debates. Each episode, I break down key topics and issues, share my perspective from over 20 years in the Tennessee legislature, and talk with guests about the decisions that impact your daily life. I hope you enjoy these honest conversations and that they help you stay informed and engaged. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Tennessee Today wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Gail, welcome to Tennessee Today.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun, a really good conversation, a lot about Republican politics, particularly here locally. But before we get into all of that, I really want to get an idea of how you got to this place in your life where, because chairman of a local party is really that's like a really big deal. Obviously, parties function differently today than they did even 20, 25 years ago, and that's a lot of responsibility on you, and it's a volunteer job, right? There's not any pay for it, correct?
100% volunteer.
100% volunteer, and yet you probably put as much time into this as anything else you put time into, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when did you get to Hamilton County? Tell me a little bit of your story, how you got here, where you are.
All right. Well, I actually would consider myself a newcomer to Hamilton County. We moved to Signal Mountain, Chattanooga in 2020, and it was a result of a job change for my husband. He was coming to work with the Chattanooga Red Wolves soccer program, and I was tagging along, and it was right in the middle of, myself and my 5 children, right in the middle of COVID. So right when things...
Great time of life for everybody.
Great timing to be moving because, it was really easy to make friends and go out and, go to parties and do all the things. Yeah. So we moved to Signal Mountain. And
so now where were you raised? Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. So I'm a Texas girl at heart.
Well, now, we say in Tennessee that we used to have 4 stars on our flag, but we gave one of them to Texas.
Yes,
and so now
everyone likes to remind me that Texas is only there because of Tennessee.
Thank you very much. Yes, I appreciate that.
I'll say it for you.
So you grew up in Fort Worth, okay?
Born and raised there, and I went. I was there until college. I went to the University of Mississippi.
Now, how did you get from Fort Worth, Texas, to the University of Mississippi?
It was just totally random. I'm a first-generation college graduate in
That's
my family.
Cool.
So, my oldest sister went to Baylor, but my parents didn't go to college. So, the rest of my siblings did not. I'm one of 5 children. So I'm from a big family. I'm the youngest of 5, and
so am I. Yeah. So, do you have? You obviously have a sister. What are the other siblings?
I have 3 older sisters and 1 older brother.
Okay. So, as you know, I have 4 older sisters, and then there's me. So we're both babies.
Yeah. So you and my brother need to talk.
Yeah. Well, I hope you treated him as well as my sisters treated me. I have really good sisters. I mean, they were tough on me, no doubt. But
he's older. He's
so.
The second oldest. So to be honest with you, my older siblings, they were kind of out of the house by the time I was growing up.
Yeah,
so.
I don't. That would be true of my eldest sister Anna. She was kind of in college and doing her own thing. So anyway, so you're in Fort Worth. You're in high school. You end up going to Ole Miss.
I was an overachiever. I will say. I actually got a nomination from Kay Bailey Hutchison at the time to attend the Air Force Academy, but I was medically disqualified, and so. I ended up at the University of Mississippi. I think I had a mentor in high school who had a friend who said, "Oh, you should check this out." And really, I just was independent and I wanted to get away, and they gave me a lot of scholarship money. And so
That's really cool that you were at least considered for the Air Force Academy. That's amazing. Wow.
I was an overachiever then too.
Yeah. Well, and then you decided to go to the University of Ole Miss. Well,
Yeah.
So what was
totally
when you were in
different
high school, were you involved in student government or anything like that?
I will tell you, I as a senior, I decided to run for class president, and I had not been involved in student government at all. But I thought, I want to be in charge. If that sounds anything like me, and I ran for
Vaguely.
I ran for class president, so I was the class president of my senior class.
Okay, all right. And was there anything? Did you have a class or a teacher or so? What kind of triggered that in you? Just your parents, your upbringing, what?
I really think it's just always been my personality type. Is I've wanted to be the best at whatever I was going to do, and I want to be, I want to do it to the best of my ability, and I think I'm just very driven.
Yeah. So you go to Ole Miss. What was your major at Ole Miss?
I was a social work major. I started as an engineering major and quickly
During this interview, we're going to work our way back to your social work
yes,
thing.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. It was important. It was important in my development.
But you started as, did you say, an engineering major?
I did. And then I quickly realized that was not a good fit. And I want to help. I want to save the world. So when I was in college, I was trying to figure out, how do I save the world? And social work seemed like a good idea.
Okay, well, that's really cool. So now, were you involved in student government in college?
Not at all.
Not at all. No young Republicans or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So fast forward, I think somehow y'all get to Nashville.
Yes. Derek, my husband, took a job at Belmont, and then he became the head women's soccer coach at Vanderbilt.
Okay. And then that led to getting you here to Chattanooga, Hamilton County, and Signal Mountain.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you come into Chattanooga, Hamilton County. It's 2020. Everything's kind of in chaos, so to speak. Everything's shut down and that kind of thing. I'm assuming that had something to do with you deciding that you were going to get engaged in the political process. Tell me about that.
Well, I want to start off by saying that when I lived in Nashville, I went to the Capitol 2 times. I lived there from 2009 to 2020. And I'm so embarrassed to say that and really disappointed in myself because what an opportunity. I was right there, and I didn't take advantage of it until my rights were being threatened. So when we moved to Signal Mountain, I didn't know what was going to happen with COVID, but we chose from the beginning not to vaccinate our children. I did my research, and I felt very compelled about the fact that I was not willing to take the chance of a vaccine injury with my children. And so when COVID happened and I started seeing what was going on with the masks being forced, and it just really led me down a dark road of, oh my goodness, my children are not vaccinated, and what's going to happen with these vaccine requirements. And so that's really what got me involved is medical freedom. You know what I care about.
Yes, I'm very well, yes.
You're very aware. And I just decided I could not sit on the sidelines. It actually affected every aspect of our life because even, at church, you couldn't go to church without putting a mask on. It was overwhelming to me. And so I had to do something. I prayed about it. And I knew that one thing I could do is I could drive back to Nashville once a week. And I didn't know what I was going to do there. I didn't know. I had no idea. But I knew I was going to go do something, sit in a committee, talk to Patsy Hazelwood. I wanted to make some kind of difference. And that's where all of this started.
Well, I think, and you do demonstrate, you really do, Gail, that one person can make a difference. I think in your role now, and we'll come back to talking about that more, but I think in your role now, part of the message that I think we have to give is that, if you don't engage yourself, you certainly can't make a difference. But one person that finds the right people to talk to can actually make a huge difference in state policy. And as you know, Tennessee, we kind of originally started down that path and then very quickly said, wait, this just didn't work, because many of us back home were just hearing from our constituents of what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? And so, Tennessee was one of the first state, if not the first state, to start backing away from all that, particularly around schools and churches and all those kind of things, which now in hindsight, We look back and we go, wow, what an overreaction, right? And it was people like you and others who were kind of sounding the alarm bells to your elected representatives, which people don't understand what an impact that can have on folks like me.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I think faithfulness, the fact that I was faithful to keep coming, even when I didn't agree with you guys every time, or even when there was a vote that I thought went the wrong way, I didn't throw up my hands and, get on Facebook and bash you and stop working to make a difference. I kept showing up. I was respectful, and I was faithful. And so I feel like God has really just rewarded that faithfulness and blessed me so abundantly.
Yeah, so you've gone from going to college, not really being that engaged, to having an experience, something that we all experience, to say, hey, I really need to be involved in this, to advocating at the state capitol for change, now to advocating for the Republican Party here in Hamilton County. That's a pretty cool story in a short amount of time, because a lot of us have been, engaged in the party stuff for a really long time. And it's refreshing to see fresh breath breathed in to the party. Now, you weren't here when we were kind of in the minority and we were having to kind of slog our way along. But it's been really refreshing to see, new breath breathed into the party, new people coming in and that kind of stuff. So you get elected to people may not know this, but why don't you explain to people the process of how someone becomes the party chairman?
Well, I will say in between fighting for my, or advocating for my family and becoming party chairman, I had another baby. We became a foster family in that time. And you helped me with a really important piece of legislation involving becoming a foster family. So that helped me even just learn more, like walking through the steps of creating legislation. So
this is not a show for that, but at some point I want to come back and maybe in another show and talk about not the politics of it, but just foster parenting.
Okay.
As you know, and just a quick side note here, we really struggle in our Department of Children's Services. I mean, I have them up next week in budget hearings, and we really struggle on the foster parenting side, trying to give, and of course the bill that the idea that you gave me and the bill that I eventually passed was to try and create more opportunities for more families, really good families, to get involved in the foster care system, because we need really good people in that system. So sometime we'll have a conversation about that, because I think we're still trying to figure that one out.
Well, I will say, as a result of your legislation, I know of 3 families who would not have considered becoming foster families that are now in the process.
Yeah, and it's and we continue to work on that, as you know, bumps along the way as we do that. But anyway, so now you have 5 children?
So Sully was my 6th.
6, that's right.
And
I've lost count.
He's 1.5 now.
Yeah.
So we had a foster child, and then he went back to be with his mom full time, but we had our 6th child. So now we have 6 kids. And when I was
let me tell you, folks, it's really amazing to be around Gail, because her kids are, and maybe not when they're with you alone, but they're the most well-behaved children.
I'm not going to let them watch this podcast.
Yeah, they are just so good, and they're so sweet and kind and nice. But Gail has all this stuff going on, and then here come these 6 kids in tow. Well, you're carrying one, and here come these other 5 kids in tow. It's really it's a testament to your. I think your patience or your organizational skills, are probably a combination of both. But anyway.
Well, I was just reading 1 Corinthians 13 this morning with my kids, because they were all fighting, and it was very frustrating. And I said, "What does it say about love? Love is patient. Love is kind." And so. I appreciate that. That's the highest. You could tell me I'm a good chairwoman, but telling me that my kids are, enjoyable to be around is the best compliment you could.
Well, I don't want people to miss and connect these two things, because it's really important. Number one, and first of all, you're a wife, you're a mom, you're a sister, right? And you're chairman of a party which doesn't pay you anything for doing that, right? I mean, I don't think people really appreciate what goes into all this and what people are managing on the side as they're managing all these phone calls from people who typically aren't calling you to tell you what a great job you're doing. They're typically calling to tell you what's not right about the party. So anyway, with all that on your plate, you decide with your children and all the other things you have in your life on your plate, you decide to run for the chairman of the Republican Party. Now, how does that work? How does somebody do that?
Well, I was really interested in the workings, kind of the inner workings of the party, because one of my good friends on Signal Mountain, Michelle Renault, ran for state representative, and I worked really hard on her campaign, and I just really wanted her to represent me. And so before she was able to run and win, she was actually turned away because she was not a qualified Republican. And now, as the chairwoman of the Republican Party, I completely understand how that happened and why she wasn't qualified, but it kind of thrust me into the inner workings of it and wanting to understand it and ask a lot of questions. And as I did that, I really didn't appreciate how I was treated by party leadership, to be honest with you. And I don't appreciate the way that it was explained. It wasn't explained well. And there wasn't a welcoming sense of, let me help you understand how the party works and how you can get involved and what you can do to be a part of it. That wasn't the message that I received. And it was more of, I felt like I was being a nuisance to them, trying to understand, what makes someone qualified or how to do more. I remember reaching out to the party and saying, "Can I volunteer? What can I do?" Like asking, and I got crickets. And so that was really frustrating to me, first of all. And then secondly, I was invited to a meeting when I was considering running for party leadership. I was invited to a meeting with some folks that were very involved in the party, and most of them still are, thank goodness. And they were basically there to tell me that I could be allowed to run as vice chairman. And I had a new baby, and to be quite honest with you, I just felt overwhelmed at the time in life, 5 kids, a new baby, but I really wanted to stay engaged because I saw what a difference one person could make. So I didn't want to walk away from all of that. But as I was sitting in that meeting, and I just felt like things had kind of been predetermined, who was going to run for chairman.
Which often happens in politics, right? I mean,
yes.
Let's be honest
and
about...
looking back now, while it felt wrong to me at the time because I hadn't been included and I didn't feel like the doors had been opened for me to be an active participant. Looking back, I can understand. I don't think that was a bad faith meeting. It motivated.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a really good way to put it. It motivated me because I thought, actually, I think I'm just as qualified as anyone else in this room to be the chairwoman of the party, and so I didn't tell them that day that I would be doing that, but I did leave the meeting thinking, I think I could feel it in my spirit. It was stirred. It was stirred to run, and so that was the beginning.
And so every 2 years, the party, the local party, or every party across the state has to go through a reorganization, which is basically an election process.
Yes.
And in that election process, the party, and people often get this confused. So I serve in state government. I don't have in the current party structure, I don't really have a role in the party. That's all people like you that do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We elect a chairman, a vice chairman, a secretary,
a second vice chairman,
and
a third vice chairman,
and a third vice chairman.
Because
lots of vice chairmen.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a title.
Do you know how big our county is?
Everybody gets a title.
Do you know how big Hamilton County is? We were operating with 5 people. When I was elected, there were 5 of us, and now there are 8.
Well, my recollection of the party before then was there was actually one person. There was one person that was doing everything, and then there were 3 or 4 other people that played minimal roles. I mean, I think as an outside observer, it would be fair for me to say one of your great skills is that you are really good at organizing things. I think you have a real skill for that, and for getting people to obviously get engaged. And I think that's for where the party is in the current current age, that's really, really important. And obviously, so you decided to run, so you started organizing.
I did.
Which is a little bit unusual, right?
Yeah, it really rubbed some people the wrong way. They were like, what is she doing?
Right, because we've never really done that before in Hamilton County.
Yes. And that was okay with me. One thing I like to do, I don't know if you're familiar with the Enneagram. I'm an 8. I'm a challenger. I like to challenge norms. I'm
not that familiar with that, but I know you, and I know that to be true.
Yes. So I was okay with doing things differently, and before I made the final decision to run as chairwoman, I will say that I called a meeting with a group of people together that I really felt like I could trust to be honest. And, I said, here's where I am, here's what I'm considering doing, but I need to know that I have your support. And if you're willing to run with me, I wanted some people also to run so I wouldn't just be the Lone Ranger. And God really just, I feel like, He checked all the boxes. The people that I would have wanted to run with were willing to run. Everyone there was willing to support me and said, yes, we're in, let's do it. And so I did it with a
Well, and I can say, because I've been doing this now, since the early 2000s, and I have seen a couple of contested races within the party. Mm-hmm. But you guys set a new standard in terms of organization and stuff. And I think, those of us that have been around it a long time were kind of like, oh, wow, this is kind of a new way of doing things, which I completely embrace. Obviously, you know that. But it was different. And, and people don't know, a lot of people think these organizational things are really well attended, and they're typically not. Yeah. But
I went to one. I went to the one in 2023. And that's actually, I would say I was shocked at that one because there was so few people there, and I was going, wait a minute, where are all the people? And so that motivated me as well, because I thought people need to know about this, and it needs to be more well attended. And the name of the group, my campaign, if you will, my campaign was called Activate Hamilton because I wanted people to just get involved. I wanted to activate people to know that, like you said about me, one person really can make a big difference. So if I could, even if I could clone 5 people in Hamilton County that were willing to get involved like I was, what a difference we could make, And so Activate Hamilton was born, and we were elected, and
elected in a big way. Y'all ran it, and it was, and of course, the way those kind of organizational meetings work, you got to bring your people, right?
Yeah.
And you certainly did. We
did.
Sat and watched, and it was great. So congratulations. So now you're chairman. Yeah. But let's kind of step back just a minute, because I don't think the public probably really knows how do you get to vote in this organizational? Who gets to go to the meeting, and then how do you decide that you get to vote but you don't get to vote?
Oh my gosh. Well, I will say it from an outsider's perspective looking in, it seemed like a very convoluted process, but I knew I could win because I had attended in 2023 and I saw how few people were there. I was like, okay, I can do this. The people who are able to attend the reorganization or the convention are the people who are qualified Republicans. In order to be a qualified Republican, you need to have done 2 things. The first one is to have voted in at least 3 out of the last 4 statewide primaries, which that is a hard job in itself to find people that have done that.
You would be shocked at the number of people who don't do that.
Oh my gosh, shocked. You would be shocked. Everyone would be shocked. But there are people, just so you know. I bought a list of, I think it was 18,000 people in Hamilton County who have voted in 3 out of the last 4 Republican primaries. But the kicker is that they also have to be actively involved in the Republican Party.
Which gets even smaller.
Yes,
numbers. Yeah.
Yes. And now I'm second guessing myself. I'm pretty sure you have to be actively involved. But that can be a number of things. Putting a sign in your yard, showing up at the convention. Showing up at the convention means you're actively involved in the Republican Party. So really, technically, we were really looking for those 3 out of 4s. And if you voted in 3 out of 4, we would. People didn't like this, but we had our own, website and system of putting people in, checking their voting record, and following through with them and encouraging them to attend. And that was it.
And so when you get to the convention, you're divided up by precincts, right? So and there are.
So this was historical. Just so you know, we were only one of 4 counties in the entire state that still ran precinct conventions. So most counties do not do that anymore. They do a mass convention. Actually, the bylaws of the state of Tennessee say that the county party reorganization shall be held as a mass convention unless the party seeks special permission from Scott Golden to have a precinct convention.
And Scott Golden is the chairman of the state's Republican Party.
Yes. And so our county, for some reason, has chosen to get special permission and host precinct conventions versus a mass convention. The only difference is that in a precinct convention, only you have to have, it's like holding 2 conventions in one day, because a precinct convention, you have to put everyone in their precinct and they all have to vote in their precinct to get to have a vote in the mass convention, which is held later that afternoon, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing.
Yeah, but for people who really don't keep up with this stuff, which is the majority of people, a precinct would be like you've got Signal Mountain 1, Signal Mountain 2, Walden, Red Bank 1, Red Bank 2, Red Bank 3, Hickson 1, Hickson 2. Each of those are their own little unit.
Yes.
And then those little units select a leader.
It's where you vote, right?
Right. It's where you vote.
Yeah.
Those little units select a leader, and then, if I'm not mistaken, based on the number of people in that precinct or that voted in that precinct, you get a certain number of votes in that precinct. And all of that adds up to eventually
1 vote for every 200 votes for Trump. So whoever showed up at the last presidential, or in the last presidential election, however many Trump votes were received, that you divide that by 200, and that's how many. So
let me ask you, and this is, do you think that's too complicated? Do you think we make it too complicated?
Actually, I
now
think,
that you're in this job,
I think absolutely we will not do a precinct convention again. We will do a mass convention. When I'm in charge and I'm running things, and my leadership team agrees with me wholeheartedly. Actually, everyone that was there that day agrees with me wholeheartedly.
Well, after you just talked about it, anybody watching this is going, that's the most complicated election process I've ever heard.
Yes. So now the way that we will be doing it in the future, and I hope it will always be done in the future, is anyone who is qualified to vote as a Republican, the 3 out of 4 who can show up the day of the convention and vote, and there will just be 1 vote. So you will have your leadership, slate or whoever's running, and all of those people that had to spend the entire morning in that precinct convention figuring out who's going to, how many votes and who's doing this and that in the precinct. We're not doing that anymore. Now, if you're a qualified Republican, you show up at the mass convention and you can vote. And, some people, I really didn't like it, but here's what I will tell you. It ended up being the biggest blessing because it helped me learn Hamilton County so well. And I now know people all over Hamilton County who showed up, spent the entire day there to support me and help get me elected. And now I can get those same people to help get other Republicans elected in this 2026, midterm. I can say, oh, we've got Sally and Joe and all these people over in District 11 or whoever over here in District 1. So I kind of, even though I hated it at the time and I complained about it, I really think it was a blessing.
Yeah. So now that you're chairman and y'all gotten kind of organized, got your team together, what are some of the interesting challenges that you have, besides just the fact that you've sort of disrupted the system, which again, I think was a healthy thing. And that now you've had time that's kind of dissipated down. Now, what are the kind of challenges that you see within the party?
Well, I will say this first year it was a challenge because there was really no foundation. There was no structure to the party and how things had been done in the past. There wasn't a financial setup where we had, a database on fundraising, and we really had to start from the ground up structurally, and that was really. So we've spent a lot of time kind of creating systems and how are we going to do things with the finances, and we wanted to be very transparent about everything. We actually created our first set of Hamilton County bylaws. That's a whole process in itself because most counties just default to the state Republican Party bylaws. Well, not most, a lot of county parties default to the state bylaws, but we wanted to have our own. And we wanted some more members of our leadership team because there was only 5 of us. And it was so overwhelming with a county of almost 400,000 people. We were drowning, So we were able to add those leadership positions. We restructured, kind of recreated the bylaws as a team with our county executive committee. And we can get into that if you want. But the budget, the bylaws, we started our monthly meetings. You've attended many of them, but I feel like giving people an opportunity to participate as a Republican outside of the club structure. And while I think the Republican women's groups are very important in supporting.
We have like 3 of those in town.
Yeah, we have 3, but they do. It is a bit like a social club. I mean, they're meeting for lunch and hearing speakers, and it's very, they're receiving all the information, but they're not necessarily being called to get activated, which is what I'm passionate about. So we've created these monthly Republican Party meetings where it's action, action, action.
And to those who don't know, you're also doing those meetings all around the county. I mean, you've done them in different locations, which again is an innovation that we had not done in the past. We kind of had one place and everybody came there, and if you couldn't get there, then you just didn't get there.
Yep. We wanted everyone to feel like we were bringing the Republican Party to their community, Now, I
want to step back because the way we do things in the Republican Party is not necessarily the way they do things in the Democrat Party. I mean, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, they have a convention. Do you know anything about how they do things? I mean, it's...
Well, I can't...
I mean, they had all their people resign here about, within the past 3 months.
I was going to say, there's definitely we could compare and contrast the two, and I'll say there's some significant differences between the two. I know that the Democratic Party of Hamilton County, they've what's the word I'm looking for? A complete overhaul of their leadership from start to finish. They were elected right around the same time we were,
right. But
now they have a whole new leadership team because there was a lot of, from my understanding, infighting, disagreements. I think that unfortunately their ideas are of some in the Democratic Party are so radical that there's others in the Democratic Party who can't get on board with it. I mean, lots of infighting, lots of turnover. We have had 0 turnover for the first. I think it might be a first in Hamilton County that no one in the leadership team has turned over.
Yeah, no. But I guess the point I was trying to get at on that is there's no state law that governs all this. This is all governed within the party structure.
I would say it's completely up to the local party and the county executive committee. I don't know that they have one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what folks may not know is that during I guess it's the primary process, isn't it? During the primary, the Republican and Democrat parties each elect from the Senate district. So I'm District 11. I have 2 members from Senate District 11 that get elected to the Tennessee State Republican Party as representatives. And then I think the Democrats have 2 members that get elected, and that's part of election law. So there is a governing body over all of the local parties, but the way the parties operate, the way the parties organize themselves is really left to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, as I was saying, people kind of get that confusion. I'm in the government side of things. You run the party. I'm on the outside representing the party, but y'all are in charge of the party, and we try to align ourselves. And we've talked about this, you and I have. We try to align ourselves with the party. In the old days, historically, it used to be that political candidates relied on the party to create the platform, and then the candidate ran and represented whatever the platform was that the party had.
Yeah.
In the modern world where we all self-advocate for ourselves, right, you now have in many instances where the candidate establishes a platform and the party has to figure out, can we align with that platform?
Yeah.
In my view, I believe that the party represents the majority of the viewpoint of Republicans in Hamilton County. And so as we're trying to debate things in the government side of things, I try to figure out our alignment and try to align with where the party is, because I think at the end of the day, I'm a Republican. I represent the hopes, dreams, and views of the Republican Party. So I try to align that with that. And that's, we've talked about that.
Yeah, I think it's a healthy tension. Probably, the way I see it would be that the party is the people, and that's how it's supposed to be, and that's why it's the leadership is supposed to be voted on by the qualified Republicans in all of Hamilton County are supposed to show up and participate and elect that leadership, and then my job or our job as the leadership is to make sure that the people who represent the party, you all, and I think we've started doing a better job of this, that you all represent the values that the Republican Party holds. And we've used the state of Tennessee Republican Party guiding principles. I really like those. They're on the TNGOP website. And so I think, I hope that all of the elected officials would be willing and likely to defer or to listen to what do the people have to say, because that's who you all represent.
I mean, again, if you're gonna be a Republican and run as a Republican and represent as a Republican, then you have to align your positions with what the Republicans' view is.
I was actually just at a meeting before this with a candidate who wants to run, and I went over every one of those bullet points in the principles, and I said, I want to make sure if you want to put our name, the Republican Party, on your candidacy, that you're willing to affirm that you will represent these principles.
So
is that fair?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think, and obviously you're as a candidate, you've got the and people maybe that don't play in this game don't see it as much, or they don't understand it. As a candidate, you have your primary, which is where you're running to represent your party. And then from there, you get into the general election where you're probably running against the other party, a Democrat. And your views during the primary are sort of vetted out, and they should align with the party. Now, there may be subtle differences and nuances between how you both agree on the issue, how you get there. There may be a nuance. But what we try to create is a contrast between what a Republican stands for versus what somebody from any other party might stand for, the Democrat, Socialists, or whoever they might be. And you can't get that kind of mass alignment if you're not aligned with the party, right? I mean, you need to be. So I totally agree with that. And for a long time, the party just didn't do that. There were a few years ago, long before you came in, even into Tennessee, it was having this conversation because, when I first got elected in 2004, we were in the minority. And it wasn't until 2006 that actually in the Senate we took the majority for the first time in roughly 150 years. Now, a lot of people who are new to Tennessee have thought that it's always been this way, right? So, we had that initial where we took over and took a majority, and everybody was really excited. And I remember speaking at a Republican event warning folks that the risk is you get very complacent because we've got these huge voting majorities, and all of a sudden you don't feel like you need the party. You don't feel like you need to be engaged because it's so obvious that we're Republican. And that's where you start losing, right? And so I think when y'all came in your leadership position and brought in that sort of breath of fresh air, was re-engaging people in like, hey, just because you're in the majority doesn't mean you're going to stay there. And oh, by the way, while you're in the majority, we kind of expect these are the values that we represent, and you should be representing them as well.
You're exactly right. And I think COVID wasn't just a wake-up call for me. It was a wake-up call for a lot of people that saw what was happening, and they were really frustrated by just the creep and the rights that they felt like were being infringed. And so I think they wanted I think that the party is the people. That's probably needs to be my message. The party is, I'm a regular person. I really just consider myself a mom and a wife and a regular person who really just wants to teach people how to get active, how to be involved, and how to, communicate with their legislators or representatives about what they want.
Yeah. So now that you're chairman, and let's say you've got all your kind of organizational structure in, and you're doing all that, we've got elections coming up. I'm sure you're very busy with as you've already referenced, you met with the candidates. So tell me what it's like. Maybe you don't want to tell me, and no 4-letter words are allowed. Tell me what it's like to be chairman of the party as we get ready for local primaries in May. And then you've got people like me that have primaries in August, but you have general elections for local people in August. So tell me,
It's
tell me
so
what
many,
a life
so many
in Gail
moving
Greene's
parts.
like. Yeah,
so
tell me what
many
it's
moving
like.
parts. Well, it's been a really fast education on all of the things regarding elections. But what I will tell you is, I love that so many people want to call me and ask me who I'm running against so-and-so in all of these different elections. It's really interesting to me because they think because I'm the chairwoman of the party that I should have somebody to run against Joe Schmo who didn't do what they wanted, in the last vote on the commission or whatever, So that has been really hard, but also really good to deal with because every time somebody calls me to find out who I'm running, I ask them if they want to run. Are you qualified to run? Would you like to run for office? And they're always quick to give me a lot of excuses about why they can't. And so that has been a challenge, but also an opportunity. I think because this past year, my leadership team, we've worked so hard to kind of create this foundation of an organized and transparent and functioning party that is in a healthy place. We haven't focused on candidate recruitment as much as I would have liked. I will say at every monthly meeting, we tried really hard to educate people. What does it look like to be a qualified Republican? How can you run for office if you want to? And I don't know that message was really out there before. It almost seemed like a secret club, like you had to get the tap on the shoulder to get to run for office. And that really turned people off. And so we've been saying from the get-go, look, this is what you have to do to run for office. You have to be active. You have to show up and vote in the primaries. Please come talk to us if you want to run for office. I will be happy to lay out if you have the qualifications or if you can meet them. And if not, is there a qualified Republican that it might displace you from the ballot? Because if there's no Republican and somebody is missing one primary or, maybe they haven't been as actively involved as they should, then people can get waivers. But the waivers should be the exception, in my opinion, not the rule. So,
well, you're the chairman, and your opinion matters. So,
well,
yeah.
well, thank you.
Well, but I mean, to some degree, as a member of the party, I do kind of look to my chairman to sort of vet people. I mean, you say you had a meeting, so you can and say, well, and in a way, the story you were telling earlier about when you went to the meeting and you met with the folks, in a way, you have that responsibility of saying, does this person who wants to run for office, sure, everybody has a right to run for office, and everybody that meets the qualifications can run as a Republican. But I think it's good for the chairman to know those people and to have, to some degree, vetted those. It's not for the chairman to say, yes, you can run and you can't. But I think it is a responsibility of the chairman to say, okay, I need to know who all these players are because ultimately they're going to be a reflection of the party. And we need really top quality people reflecting the part that align with the party, right?
And let's be honest, anyone who's qualified can run whether I like it or not. I mean, just because someone's on the ballot doesn't mean Gail Greene has given them, her, whatever you want to call it, her anointing. Because at the end of the day, I am going to ask questions and do my best to make sure that they will reflect our principles. But even if they, voted Democrat their whole life up until 6 years ago and decided, hey, I'm going to switch over, be a Republican and get on the commission or whatever I want to do, at the end of the day, there's really not much I can do about it. But I hope that by asking the questions about the principles, having them sign an oath that says I will represent these, that at least it would make people have a second of hesitation before they sign it and don't represent us well.
But let's be honest with each other. I mean, right now in Tennessee, the political brand you want to have is the Republican brand.
Yeah.
And you have somewhat of a responsibility to protect the brand, right? And folks like me rely on you to protect the brand.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that can happen to us is the brand gets corrupted, and that leads to losing elections down the line. So I think outside of just the organizational stuff that you have a responsibility to do, I think your responsibility to protect the brand is as important as anything else that you do. And our responsibility is to represent the brand when we get elected to the best of our ability. Again, there are nuanced differences between, we agree with this principle. How we get there may be a little different. But I think we all have to represent the brand because it is the most valuable thing that we have. And when you get into supermajority status, people realize, well, I can't get elected unless I'm that brand. And so all of a sudden you have people trying to pretend to be the brand just because that's the only way you get it, right?
Yes, 100%.
And you're the guardian of that.
You know what? You're absolutely right. And I hold that responsibility very, I think it's very important. And I want to do a good job, but as the people, I am the people. So I guess if the people aren't engaged and they aren't paying attention, they don't care, then so goes the party, in my opinion. And I think right now people are so engaged and they care so much about who is representing them that in my opinion, now that we've gotten the party kind of on a really solid foundation, organizationally, financially, I will say there was $20,000 in the bank when we took over, and right now there's $110,000 in the bank. And so I hope it's public knowledge. We announce it at our meetings where we are, and we show everyone.
No, we're much financially. Our financial strength as a party is so much better under y'all's guidance.
I just think it takes time, and I hope that the more we educate people and they show up, then people are going to step into the candidate role and go, oh, wait a minute, this is my responsibility. Because I think just being in leadership for a year, it's not a lot of time for me to go, let me produce a slate of quality candidates per se.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Let me just say on the financial side, this isn't a slight at those that walked before you. It just wasn't a focus of theirs, right? I mean, they raised enough money to kind of keep the party alive. They didn't raise enough money to really kind of help candidates and that kind of stuff. And I used to kind of chirp about that a lot of, hey, we need to raise money to help candidates. That's not a criticism. That just wasn't their focus. Now that's become a focus of y'all's, where you have monthly membership kind of things. It's really that financial strength again helps protect the brand, which is at the end of the day what you have a real responsibility to do.
And we want to start a brand messaging campaign actually to support, because we can't take sides in a primary. What we can do is we can encourage people to understand what it means to be a Republican. And we can do that by putting out messaging that will help, in my opinion, that will help people go, oh, I want to vote for the Republican because I want to vote for the person who believes in personal responsibility, fiscal conservatism, the sanctity of life, the Second Amendment. So we're going to use a little bit of that money, probably not a lot of it, but we want to get the message out there and speak to people about why it's important to show up and vote and support Republicans.
And I'll tell you again, what I really appreciate, one thing y'all are doing that I wish maybe the state party did more of, is y'all have a real focus on state and local elections. Mm-hmm. The federal side of things gets most of the theater, gets most of the attention and all that kind of stuff. But you and I know that the action, there are big things that the federal government does and they make a difference. But on the day-to-day things of life,
it's local.
It's those local school board, local county commission, local city council, state representatives, state senate. Those are the seats and positions that really define the political culture, how a local community really operates. And I really appreciate that y'all have kind of focused on that and said, and even in places, and I know we struggle with this, even in places where the Republican message is not really heard, or when it is heard, it's not well heard. We need to be, and y'all are trying to reach out into those areas because we think we have the message that really makes a difference in people's lives. It makes a difference for local government.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep knocking on doors and shaking hands and trying to share the message, because eventually, if it hasn't already hit their pocketbook, or maybe their, someone's child has been indoctrinated in school or whatever, it's going to affect them personally. And I think I don't want it I don't want people to have to wake up because of their personal experience with the Democrat Party and what it can do to our lives if we let them take over. I would rather them just realize that the Republican way makes sense, and that if you have children and a family, you might want to consider coming over to the red side.
Yeah, well, we will welcome you, and you do have to manage, and people forget about this. I mean, you do have to manage a spectrum of Republicans. Yes. From Republicans, we'll say center Republicans, all the way to far right Republicans. We always say, we want to be a big tent, but there are, as you've pointed out, there are these fundamental guiding values or principles or whatever you want to call them that within that spectrum, everybody's living under.
100%. I am not a fan of the term big tent, but only because there can be a big tent, but if we cater to the outer edges of the big tent, then all the people that are in the middle are going to be very frustrated and angry and upset
and not engaged.
Yeah, and they're going to want to check out. And so I say we focus on the principles that we hold dear as Republicans, and we hold those firmly, and we're proud of them. And the people who want to come and join the tent that might have some more moderate views, that's great. But we're going to champion what we believe in loudly and clearly, because it's our strength, And so we want them to join us. We want them to be a part of the party, but we're not going to change our values for them.
So we've talked a lot about branding, but you really have focused on, people being involved, and broad spectrum of people. But those people, we've got clear values, principles that Republicans hold. Someone listening to this, watching this, how do they plug in? Because you have your own unique story, and your personality. You didn't knock on the door. You kind of knocked the door down. But how does someone watch this? How do they involve themselves in the Republican Party?
Well, I hope that everyone listening to this wants to get more involved with the Republican Party. So what I would encourage them to do, first of all, is go on the website, HCGOP.com. And first of all, we have a calendar on the website that lists upcoming activities. But what's more important than that, honestly, are our monthly meetings, because I feel like that's the place where we put everything up on the screen. This is coming up. This is coming up. Here's how you volunteer. Here's how you get engaged. And I'm really excited. You said you've touted my organization skills, so I'm gonna just talk about it. But the precinct strategy that, it almost seems like the old precinct strategy, because I don't know that people use it as much anymore. But when we had to have that delegated convention with all the precincts, it was a blessing to me. So now I'm familiar with all the precincts. I want to get volunteers all over the county activated. I want them to understand, I live in this precinct, which is in this district. So when, the Hamilton County Republican Party, we need door knockers. As the chairwoman, I want to be able to say, I've got these people over here that are willing to make phone calls, knock on doors. They'll go set up a table and, educate voters. So I need these people to sign up on our website. They can just get on our weekly emails. They can show up at our monthly meetings. But also at the top, there's a tab that says committees, and they can go complete the question. It's a very short questionnaire, but tell us which committees they might be interested in being on. And then I would say just come introduce yourself. Send me an email, a phone call. I am a really busy person, but an active volunteer is worth more than $1 million. If you want my honest opinion, yes, I will take your $1 million, but I would take a very engaged active volunteer any day of the week and twice on Sunday, because they can make a world of difference.
Yeah, I think y'all have, and it's never been communicated as well as you just communicated it. But we want people to be involved in the party, right?
Yes,
we need people to be involved in the party, and it's not just about being involved in one particular candidate's campaign or another. Obviously, that helps, and that helps bring people in. Candidates help bring people in, but it's really, again, going back to what I think you have driven home really well, and I hope you'll keep driving this home, is there are particular values and principles that Republicans have. And if you align with those, come on. we will utilize your skill set, and there may be opportunities for you to serve as well.
And as a candidate, I hope it's exciting to candidates to go, wow, my county party is very active and they have volunteers all over the place. So if I'm a good quality, candidate, my party is actually going to help provide the volunteers for me, because if I represent them well, they're going to show up for me. I feel like it's a very, symbiotic relationship there.
Yeah. So. No, I think that is exactly right. I mean, I think that candidates, again, we're kind of getting back to where y'all have kind of brought us back to a place where the party has relevance to the candidates' campaign. For a period of time there, campaigns were just running their campaigns and the party was something out over here. I really appreciate the fact that, we've now got that, you're trying to bring the party to where the party has significant relevance to each candidate's campaign, and the candidates once selected in the primary, because you've got to get through the primary process, and the party has to sit on the sidelines in a primary because the people get to choose who represents them. But once that happens, and once you have an opponent from the opposing party, it's good to know that the party wants to have your back, so to speak, and wants to be supportive of you. There are times, obviously, for those of us that are candidate, where within the party structure, people within their own party start picking at you for different things, and that's part of the process, and we understand that. But I think by and large, you're really trying to build a unity that will serve candidates really, really well in the future. And I think that's really key and important, and something that nobody else is doing that I have seen.
Well, I don't see this as an us versus them at all. I feel like the more common ground we can find between, some people like to call the previous leadership, or the establishment versus the grassroots. Well, I can understand that, but there's a lot of really good people in the establishment that have worked very hard for years, and fought for the very principles that I believe in. So who am I to, say it's us against them? No, it is us and them. We need the grassroots, and the grassroots is alive and well and strong. We are not just a fringe, tiny group of people. That's just not the case. It's not reality. But we also really need the establishment and the people who have worked hard for years to join us. And so I hope that if anyone is watching this who may have been frustrated or disappointed when my team won or when I won, I hope they will consider getting to know me a little bit better and joining us and helping us, because the more we work together, the stronger we will be. And the stronger Hamilton County Republican Party is, the better it is for everyone.
Well, and I mean, we may be a supermajority at the state level, but we may be at the county level. But when you get into the city of Chattanooga, we are not, and we got a lot of work to do there. On the school board, we may have a majority, but we've still got a lot of work to do there. So, anybody who takes for granted that, and listen, the political winds can shift very quickly, and anyone who thinks that just because something is the way it is this year, it's going to always be that way, is completely misreading how the political world can work. So,
absolutely. I agree.
So, hey, this has been the most entertaining conversation. I really want to thank you for taking time, because obviously, as we talked about, you're really, really busy. So just to take some time with me, I'm very grateful. This has been Tennessee State Senator Bo Watson with another episode of Tennessee Today. Hey, look, if you enjoyed this episode, and you had to have enjoyed it, take a moment and click the like button or the subscribe button. It helps get the podcast out to other listeners and other viewers. So we'll see you next time.